In the last lesson, we looked at how we can begin to work with our arrays and add in some values into arrays. So unlike objects, we've got a lot of built-in functionality that comes with an array, and this really allows us to handle all of these items that are available in an array really easily. So I want to just console log this out and console log out that array. And I'm going to comment out all of this stuff down here, these console logs, so that doesn't get too confusing with what we're trying to show you within this lesson. So in this lesson, we're going to be going over how to work with arrays. So we've got our array that we've created here. We're pushing in an item, we're updating the first value, or whatever one has the index of 0. And also, sometimes occasionally we want to remove stuff from the array. And this is where we use pop. So pop by default removes out the last item from the array. So what's going to happen here whenever I refresh it, we can see that I've got all of my items here within the array. So I've got the last item, I've added that in, and then pop actually removes that out. So that's an interesting effect with arrays, that we're able to push in items and pop items out as needed. So we also have different options as well, where we can remove the first item from the array. So I can remove this updated one, and I can use that removing it, selecting it out and removing that one. So I'll show you how to do that. So this is array shift, so the array value and shift, and it's going to remove back out that first item from the array. So let's refresh it. So now we've removed out updated. And just like what we were adding into the end of the array with push, we also have another option to add in a value at the beginning of the array, so unshift. And so this is going to add it in the beginning of the array, but we need to know the value that we want it to add in, so new item added. So let's take a look at this now. So what we're doing here is now we're adding in a brand new item at the beginning of the array. We can also delete out items from the array. So we can use delete to remove those out. Best practice is usually to shift or to pop them out so that you don't have any undefined values within your array that are just sitting there as holes, because the way that arrays work is they do reserve that spacing. So this is usually best practices. Also, we can use splice to add in items within the array. So let's say that now we want to add in something after 2. So we do have that option within JavaScript. And I know there's quite a lot here that we can do with arrays, and this really demonstrates the power that we've got available within the arrays. So this one's called splice. So essentially it changes the content of an array, adding new elements while removing older ones as well. So we do have the ability to update those and add in new ones. So maybe I'm just going to do new 1 and new 2. Maybe change that to lowercase, and now we need to specify where we want it to update them and which ones we want it to change. So we want to start it at position 2, and then how many elements we want to remove. So if we can, if we set it at 0, and I'm also going to show you how if we set it at 2, what's going to happen. Or maybe I can do 3 and 4. So that there is some difference there. So let's take a look at what happens now. So we see that the first one there, the splice, we're specifying in position 2, so 0, 1, 2, and this is where we're adding in those new values of new and 2. So we're adding it in between here. And now the next one, we're still looking at splicing at 2, but we're removing the new 1 and the new 2, and essentially we're replacing those 2 items with these 2 new ones. And you're probably wondering, well, what happens if I don't actually specify what I want to do which ones I want to add in, but I just simply want to remove out 2 elements. So let's take a look at that, and we can also use splice to remove out elements. So if we don't specify these, what do you think is going to happen now? So when I refresh it, we see that this gives us ability to actually remove out items depending on the index as starting point, and we can specify how many items we want to remove out. And with arrays, we just really have so much power of things that we can do with the arrays. We can also, so we saw how we can use splice, we saw how we can use pop, shift, and we've got some more that we can look at. So we've got slice. So returns a shallow copy of a portion of an array. So we slice out A, and we need to specify where we want to slice A out at. And actually, we should call this, so we already have a value for B, so I'm going to call it C now, because what this is going to do is this is actually going to create a brand new array. So I'm going to have A and C and show you what's happening here. So now whenever I refresh it, C is not defined, so I do need to define the variable C. So good thing that we've got the console open there, that we're defining C. So C is, so value for C is equal to C slice. So I can't actually just do it without setting that value. I need to specify that C is equal to, and what C is going to be equal to. So C is going to be a splicing of A. So that way we're setting that value of C, and now we can see that once we slice it at this point, then we just return back the remaining items within that array. We can also add in 2 arguments if we want, so we can specify additional information of where we want this slicing to return to start at. So let's say we're looking to slice at item number 2, and we want to return back 2 items. So let's take a look at this, and now, so it's returning back 0. And I have to actually go back and update this, because this is going to be where we're starting and where we're ending slice. So let's show you how that works. So now we've got false and 5. So we're starting at our starting point of 3 and ending at the last point. When you are selecting, make sure that your starting point is less than your ending point. And a few other things that we can do with our arrays. So actually, if I was to remove out this C entirely, let's see what happens now. So whenever I refresh it, we see that we don't have any change in there, because we're not specifying any new value to hold the value that's contained within the slice. So always make sure that you're prepared to set up a brand new array to hold that information. We also have the option to sort our arrays. So if we want to sort array A, we can sort it, and we also have the option to reverse order it. So let's reverse it first, and then next, or we could sort it, and then we can reverse it. And I'll show you what's going to happen now whenever we add in the reverse. So it reverses the array in place. The first element becomes the last element, and in the sorting order. So let's just show you how that works. So now we've got numerics are first, and then it does it by the value of the string values. So then we've got new items, uppercase comes before the Boolean value, and then we've got the lowercase alphabetically. And then here it's inverted, where we start out with the lowercase alphabetically, reverse alphabetical, and then it goes to the Boolean value. Then it goes to uppercase alphabetical reversed again, so Z would be the starting point, and then it ends up with numeric. And that's how you can really start working with arrays, and you can see the real power between these arrays. And so keeping in mind that once you reversed and sorted them differently, then all of these functions that we've been doing earlier, where we're slicing and splicing and setting index points and so on, all of this is going to be different, because now our order of the items is different and their indexes are all different and updated. And this is, arrays really do serve an extremely important purpose when you're writing out your JavaScript and you're applying your JavaScript logic, because it really does give you the opportunity to work with that data in place and make some dynamic returned values just by having those values within the array and then working with them and manipulating them. And all of this is going to become more evident, and the need and the usefulness of working with your data in these types of formats is going to become more evident and when we start looking at conditional statements and loops and so on. So these are, and functions as well, that are built in and provide us a whole bunch more functionality within our JavaScript code. And all of that is coming up in the next set of lessons.